What is it about Mona Lisa that has captured the fascination of millions? The beloved oil-on-wood Renaissance masterwork, which currently resides in a room of its own at the Louvre, is known by many names. La Gioconda, Lisa del Giocondo, or simply Mona Lisa. Created by history's most creative genius, Leonardo da Vinci, the Mona Lisa is an absolute feat of master craftsmanship. Its actual size is 77 by 53 centimeters, 30 by 20 7/8 inches, and is owned by the government of France. A remarkable instance of Leonardo's sfumato technique of soft, heavily shaded modeling figure of a woman dressed in the Florentine fashion of her day and seated in a visionary, mountainous landscape with an enigmatic expression which seems both alluring and aloof. The Mona Lisa's famous smile represents the sitter in the same way that the juniper branches represent Ginevra Binche, and the ermine represents Cecilia Gallerani in their portraits in Washington and Krakow, respectively. A very visual representation of the idea of happiness suggested by the word Gioconda in Italian, Leonardo made this notion of happiness the central motif of the portrait. It is this notion which makes the work such an ideal. And it is not just the sitter that gives that fascinating quality to the painting. The nature of the landscape also plays a role. The middle distance, on the same level as the sitter's chest, is in warm colors. Men live in this space. There is a winding road and a bridge. This space represents the transition between the space of the sitter and the far distance, where the landscape becomes a wild and uninhabited space of rocks and water which stretches to the horizon, which Leonardo has cleverly drawn at the level of the sitter's eyes. And it goes beyond the elements that complete the painting. Mona Lisa was among the first portraits to depict the sitter before an imaginary landscape, and Leonardo was one of the first painters to use aerial perspective. The enigmatic woman is portrayed seated in what appears to be an open loggia with dark pillar bases on either side. And behind her, a vast landscape recedes to icy mountains, while winding paths and a distant bridge give only the slightest indications of human presence. The sensuous curves of the woman's hair and clothing, created through sfumato, are echoed in the undulating imaginary valleys and rivers behind her. The blurred outlines, graceful figure, dramatic contrasts of light and dark, and overall feeling of calm are characteristic of Da Vinci's style. Due to the expressive synthesis that Da Vinci achieved between sitter and landscape, it is arguable whether Mona Lisa should be considered as a traditional portrait, for it represents an ideal rather than a real woman. In the Renaissance, which brought together all human activities, art meant science. Art meant truth to life. Leonardo da Vinci was a great figure because he embodied the epic endeavor of Italian art to conquer universal values.